From the Tower District in Fresno, California, you're listening to the Wake, Bake, Caffeinate podcast with your host, Eve Ryland. Now here's the badass activist herself, Eve Ryland.
Well, alrighty. Welcome to episode 3, podcast version of Wake, Bake, Caffeinate. It is, well, almost Tuesday, May 11th, so we'll go with that. And it's been a busy week or so since the last episode. So we've got a lot going on here, a lot coming up. Heard the big news. Elon Musk is autistic. I heard the whole autistic community slap their foreheads and go, oh, wow, we never would have known unless he told us. Anyhow, so I suppose that's the first openly autistic person on SNL, but by all means, we've been watching SNL for decades. We know. It's just the first one openly autistic on stage for SNL. But, I gotta say, there's a whole lot of opinions floating around there on Twitter about this and other places. I haven't quite had a chance to catch up with everything. I've been working on this rabbit hole. We're going to go down in a little bit here in this episode. But Bill showed me the clip off of SNL so I could know what the buzz was about. And my goodness, for me, the biggest highlight was when Elon Musk brought out his mom and her fashion. Oh my gosh, that blazer. Did you see it? And then the turtleneck with the velvet and the flower print with the bit of illusion there, right? And the shiny bits on her jacket. Oh, everything was just spot on. I was so impressed. Oh, it was amazing. So I had to pause that on, check out that outfit there for a while. But, fashion is one of my favorite interests. So, yeah, astounding fashion. So if you haven't seen the clip and you want to see something really great in there, check out that blazer outfit. It is incredible. So actually, I think that would be like my favoriteest outfit that I've seen on anybody in a long time. Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop nerding out on that one. But we got a lot coming up here. Some community news. I'm going to catch up over on Autistic Science Person's blog with the Spectrum event and some of the advocacy reflections they have on it. I'll share just a bit about that of theirs and highly encourage you to jump over and read theirs. And then some of the others, Autistics, have some responses linked from that one as well, so you can get a more complete view from everybody's perspective as well. So after that, listen up. This is like massive trigger warning. Always with this show, it's a massive trigger warning. Just the nature of the activism and history and things that go along with autistic history, culture, stigma, and everything else. But trigger warning all through this episode is going to be eugenics, filicide, murder, suicide, functioning labels, a lot of person-first language, bucketfuls of ableism, lots of abuse being described as therapy, also ABA, severe othering, loads of stigma. We're going to be hearing quotes throughout the entire podcast, interspersed of Suzanne and Bob Wright, and other Autism Speaks events, as well as autistic advocates and activists who were raising their voices around the same time as these folks and their autism community were shouting and drowning out autistic people. So now that's been said, let's talk about what's coming up, we got community news coming up. Again, we're going to take a look at Autistic Science Person's blog and their update on the Color of the Spectrum and Next for Autism event and the autistic advocacy and some of the reflection they had about that. Plus, we've got Alison Singer, the letter she wrote in 2006 about cure is not a four-letter word. That's an interesting bit of autistic history, right? So then we have the rabbit hole. We're going down a very, very, very long rabbit hole today, and that focus is on Autism Speaks and the cure. So over on AutisticSciencePerson.com, you can find the headline, My Personal Reflections on Color, the Spectrum, and Autistic Advocacy, and it was posted May 2nd, 2021. So I'm going to share just a part of this with you and some of my own thoughts as well. But I just want to say this is the article. Since a group of autistic self-advocates have disbanded and had no contact with Next for Autism, I would like to make a personal statement to reflect on the Color the Spectrum event. To me, this Color the Spectrum event was about a lot more than Next for Autism and the really awful responses to autistic people. I would like to explain why. I know, as an autistic community generally, that we haven't been heard at all in any capacity. People haven't listened to us. People haven't learned. No one has responded to us quickly or transparently about things that are about us without us. For the first time at a large charity event on this live stream, I heard the words autistic person, not just once or twice, but consistently throughout the entire program. An explanation was given as to why, towards the end of the live stream, that change came about by one person listening to one autistic person. I know a lot of autistic people will consider that to be the bare minimum and not an important change. But I never thought I'd ever hear any non-autistic person say autistic person in a big event like that about autism. I never thought in my lifetime I would hear those words. In my world, it's monumental and nearly historical. It has never happened before. This is something that I had to think about. How many autistic kids watched that show last night? How many parents of autistic kids watched it? And I saw identity first language being used consistently. How many people saw an autistic person at AUTISTAMATIC at Autismatic telling people to listen to autistic people and work with us instead of for us, that we have blogs and videos and can educate people about what it means to be us. Autistic people have every right to be angry about all of this. I get the anger and frustration about this entire thing. I am angry and frustrated too. I understand that many autistic people had to spend many days and enormous effort to get this change to happen, and that we weren't allowed to be transparent about this process at the time. There is no tangible benefit to the advocacy that happened right now, and the autistic community deserves an apology and deserves acknowledgement for the harm that has been caused by both Margaux and Next for Autism. I just want to acknowledge that those changes to the event were real. And they really did happen. And someone, Mark Rober, and likely the production team, honestly, did listen and change that. That has never happened before. And that is a first step. A very, very small first step. Now you can read this writing, this article, this post in full at autisticscienceperson.com. There's quite a bit more to it and some great links to follow up with as well. And then there are some links at the bottom of the entire blog where you can find the reflections of the other autistic self-advocates that were participating, or some of them. So there is one listed as autistic. Oh, that. Damn it. That word makes me tick. Sorry. Why am I saying sorry? I can't help it. All right. So it says here the headline is following up regarding the color of the spectrum and next for autism. So you can jump from Autistic Science Person's blog to there, or you can go to Rory Reckons. And the headline for their post is Reflections on Color, the Spectrum, and My Future. Autistic Advocacy for Another Perspective. And again, you can jump to that post or article from the post here on AutisticSciencePerson.com. So thank you all so very, very, very much for the work you have done. Hold on, I've got to slow my brain down 1 second. Ooh, this is good. What is this today, Bill? Bill's gonna tell me what is in the pipe right now. This awesome pipe I have to tell you about. It's not a pipe at all. Oh my gosh. It's not a pipe at all.
Ironically, or maybe not quite so.
Pardon?
Ice cream cake.
Oh, okay. So oh my goodness. This is incredible. This is an amazing coincidence because I am smoking ice cream cake strain out of my brand new silicone bong that was a gift to me from the awesome folks at AK Smoke Shop on Olive here in the Tower District in Fresno, California. My smoke shop people, yes. So it's an ice cream cone. It quite literally is a ice cream cone. That's really awesome because in Fresno it gets really hot here. We are just right now in this wonderful part of the season where we can go out and enjoy the weather before we melt by 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., and by 4 or 5 p.m. it's cooking at 105, 106 and hotter sometimes. So yeah, this is amazing for that because you can put in the bottom, there's a couple of pieces to it when it's all together. It looks like an ice cream cone with a brown waffle bottom and then a yellowish sherbet color for the scoop. And then there is a brown sort of spigot coming out of the ice cream scoop on one side. And then on the other side is a spot for the bowl. I have my bowl in a silicone thing, so I double up because I do have ticks and tremors and twitches, and I can accidentally toss one of these mofos across the room. But if I tried to do it on purpose, nothing would work right. So whatever, right? But here's the awesome part. On the very, very top is a red cherry, right? And then you can take it apart. The ice cream top comes apart from the bottom waffle cone. And inside, you can put ice and water and really cool down when you're smoking. But that is an amazing feature, but mostly it's just so stinking cute. I cannot help it. It's adorable. So thank you guys over there at AK Smoke Shop. This is awesome. I will share pictures and some video of everything of this on my Instagram, and I know I've got some video and some photos hanging out there too to share because it's awesome fun and uh, it's awesome. And I also know that they have more there right now. So if someone's looking for an amazing ice cream waffle cone silicone bong you cannot break, go there. All right, so let's get back to this. Actually, I'm going to take a moment and actually slow my brain down here a moment so I can speak right. So I want to share the music included today is by my very non-autistic but very divergent husband, Bill Ryland. And he's going to be doing his version of one of my favorite songs called Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die. Right? Yeah, I can hear a version of it that's got three great singers in it, like Willie Nelson and a few others. But this is Bill's version of the song, and I do. I like to listen to it when I take a smoke break, and I wanted to share it with you. The one I'm going to close this episode 3 out with is his Bill's version of I still haven't found what I'm looking for, but that'll be at the end. But if you want to check out more of his stuff, you can do that and find more of his videos and his songs from all genres and decades. And as you can hear here, he does his own version of them, which is quite fun. You can find him pretty much at Ryland Music anywhere at TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and Facebook, and that's ReilandMusic. And you can find him on YouTube at Ryland Music. So there is that, and thank you, Casino. He records ones I request from time to time, so I can include them here. So if you guys have a request, I might be able to see if he's interested. Just hit me up at autisticfashion@gmail.com and we'll see if we can make a special. He's giving me an eyeball right now. I can feel it. Oh yeah, but still, if you have one, email me and we'll see if we can figure something out. So Autistic Science Person wrote about a very little step, it's one small step. I'm gonna get nutty here again, yes, but one small step for man is one giant leap for mankind, right? So if they can get away with all that, imagine what autistics are going to do with this little step. Because I have never seen anything like this happen. You can find out the details of everything that went down and links to more of the details over on AutisticSciencePerson.com's blog. So please do check that out. But listen up. This is next for autism, that they did not directly connect with autistics at all in this is not surprising at all. We're talking about the founders, Laura Slatkin, Harry Slatkin, and, some of their history. Put it this way, this is a big dent in their armor. It's a scratch that they never wanted to have, and oh wow, it's just a wow. Because Autistic History tells me that the Slatkins are a part of the autism cabal that formed in 2003, and them with Bob and Suzanne Wright, and the Simons, the couple with Simons and Foundation and Safari, and then they pulled in Alison Singer and some others, and then inherited, Portia Iverson and John Shaystack of Cure Autism Now. So we've got this group of folks between 2003 and 2005. They're all working together. Autism Speaks will actually go forward and merge with a couple of these organizations by 2006 and 2007. But Right, so let's go way back in autistic history and land back into the year 2008. I have what I'm about to share with you here. It's coming from my own personal archives from blogging and comments and emails. And I've got an archive that goes back to, I think, 2005. I'm one of those terrible people that archives everything. So, uh, one of my first campaigns for autism, at the time it was awareness, and I was just it was my newbie year, I was learning quickly a lot of things, and it was a very, very confusing time back in 2008 because of all the gaslighting and misinformation and tragedy narrative going on. But so I had started a blog ring, sort of blogging and raising money for autism awareness. And then a lot of bloggers, I think over 200 connected at that time. Um, and there was a lot going on, and I was just starting to learn about a lot of things. And one of those things was about actually Laura Slatkin and Harry Slatkin and Alison Singer. So I received a comment posted to my blog at that time on May 4th, 2008. And this is what that person had to say. If so much, oh yes, and we were raising money because a big site, opinion site at the time called blognetnews.com, I think it was. It hurts my head to try and remember. So, anyhow, so trying to pick the organizations to be the beneficiaries of the advertising, all the advertising on any of the pages that were related to the autism awareness stuff were 100% donated to charities or organizations of whatever ones we decided on as a group and voted for. So this is part of that commentary that was going back and forth. And so this comment came in on May 4th, 2008 in regards about the charity selections or the organization selections. And it says, if so much as a penny goes to Autism Speaks, count me out. They are funding research to develop a prenatal test and expect to do so by 2015, as discussed by one of their leading researchers, Dr. Joseph Bobaum. My apologies if I say that wrong. I'm terrible with names. All right, and they said this in an interview on MSNBC.com. Note, the group NAAR mentioned in the article merged into Autism Speaks. Alison Singer, a vice president of Autism Speaks, publicly fantasized about murdering her child in the Autism Everyday film. Two Autism Speaks directors, Harry and Laura Slatkin, said that they wished their child would drown in their backyard pond. See the Autism Speaks, Don't Speaks for Us petition to read more about that. And so there's a link there in this that goes to the petition. I don't know if it's still there or if it's in the Wayback Machine. I haven't even tried to look yet. So Suzanne Wright, founder of Autism Speaks, said in a January 8 interview with Parade magazine that her goal is to eradicate autism. In short, Autism Speaks is a hate group masquerading as a charity. I suggest contributing to the Autism Acceptance Project, a charity that promotes acceptance of and accommodations for autistic people in society. So that was the first time I ever heard of Laura Slatkin and Harry Slatkin. And so you can see going all the way back to 2008, these founders and these people have been incredibly problematic, and autistic people have been trying and trying and trying to get heard and understood and supported in stopping the harm these folks are causing for a very, very, very long time. And I know it's frustrating because you want it all now, and it is frustrating. But frustration here is there is now a scratch in the armor of Next for Autism, which means there's also a crack in the foundation now of Autism Speaks. And here, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why that is, because I'm going to share with you just a short bio, the quick rundown, and you can find this information that I just read the archives from my own personal archives, and this short bio included. You can find that on either Autistic Fashion and Divergent Style blog at autisticstyle.fashion.com under the headline of Deconstruction of Autism Speaks, Town and Country magazine's article, Autism Angels. There's a part 1, part 2. Either one should be available in there. So the short bio here is Laura Slatkin is a non-autistic mom to an autistic child and non-autistic child, respectively David and Alexandra. Laura Slatkin, pay attention, is a founding member of Autism Speaks, part of the founding board of directors from Autism Speaks founding date in 2005 all the way through until 2018. I don't know if anything else has been updated or if that was the last year. But also, you might recognize one of the big sponsors for Autism Speaks, Nest Fragrances, right? Nest Fragrances, I see them all the time. Well, Laura Slatkin is the founder of Nest Fragrances. She's also president of Candela Group, and yes, the co-founder for Next for Autism and the creator of the NYCA, or the New York City Autism Charter School. Laura Slatkin has also served on the board of directors at Columbia University Department of Psychiatry, served on Hunter College Autism Research and Policy Board, served on the boards for Henry Street Settlement House and the New England Center for Children. Laura Slatkin was also interviewed in the documentary Autism: True Lives, and she chose to be honest, right? No. That's like exploitation, and yeah. So states autism is devastating and people don't understand, and yes, imagines if her son wasn't autistic, what it would mean to have him back. It'd mean the world, except for maybe she never had him in the first place, but for him to be normal, I don't know. It's gibberish. But Harry Slatkin, he's a co-founder himself of Next for Autism. He's also president of Limited Brands, founder of Slatkin and Company, owner and chairman of Homeworks, acquired Bell Staff with Tommy Hilfiger, and just a bunch of other stuff. But also, on big shows like CNN, The Martha Stewart Show, Extra TV, CNBC, ABC, Comedy Central, all of that. Also, Harry Slatkin has partnered with Weill Cornell Medicine and Columbia University, Bagelos College of Physicians and Surgeons to open Center for Autism and the Developing Brain. He also appeared to show his deep and dark, honest thoughts on a national platform and documentary, the same one, Autism: True Lives, as well. So
imagine a child's hug. Imagine their smiles, their laughter, their first words. Imagine all that fading away. Imagine a child unable to reach out and communicate with those who love him most. This is autism, and it affects 55 new children a day. Cure Autism Now is teaming up with Checkers and Rallies to fund essential medical research. So visit your local Checkers or Rallies today and help us bring those children back.
I am autism. I'm visible in your children, but if I can help it, I am invisible to you until it's too late. I know where you live, and guess what? I live there too. I hover around all of you. I know no color barrier, no religion, no morality, no currency. I speak your language fluently, and with every voice I take away, I acquire yet another language. I work very quickly. I work faster than pediatric AIDS, cancer, and diabetes combined. And if you are happily married, I will make sure that your marriage fails. Your money will fall into my hands, and I will bankrupt you for my own self-gain. I don't sleep, so I make sure you don't either. I will make it virtually impossible for your family to easily attend a temple, a birthday party, a public park, without a struggle, without embarrassment, without pain. You have no cure for me. Your scientists don't have the resources, and I relish their desperation. Your neighbors are happier to pretend that I don't exist, of course, until it's their child. I am autism. I have no interest in right or wrong. I derive great pleasure out of your loneliness. I will fight to take away your hope. I will plot to rob you of your children and your dreams. I will make sure that every day you wake up, you will cry, wondering who will take care of my child after I die. And the truth is, I am still winning, and you are scared, and you should be. I am autism. You ignored me. That was a mistake.
And to autism I say,
I am a father,
a mother,
a grandparent,
a brother,
a sister.
We will spend every waking hour trying to weaken you.
We don't need sleep because we will not rest until you do.
Family can be much stronger than autism ever anticipated, and we will not be intimidated by you, nor will the love and strength of my community.
I am a parent riding towards you, and you can push me off this horse time and time again, but I will get up, climb back on, and ride on with the message.
Autism, you forget who we are. You forget who you are dealing with. You forget the spirit of mothers and daughters and fathers and sons.
We are
the United Kingdom.
The United States.
We are Argentina.
We are the European Union.
We are the United Nations.
We are coming together in all climates.
We call on all faiths. We search with technology
And voodoo.
prayer and
Herbs, genetic studies,
And a growing awareness you never anticipated.
We have had challenges, but we are the best when overcoming them.
we speak the only language that matters, love for our children.
Our capacity to love is greater than your capacity to overwhelm.
Autism is naive.
you are alone.
We are a community of warriors.
We have a voice.
You think because some of our children cannot speak, we cannot hear them? That is autism's weakness.
You think that because my child lives behind a wall, I am afraid to knock it down with my bare hands?
You have not properly been introduced to this community of parents and grandparents, of siblings and friends, and school teachers, therapists, pediatricians, and scientists.
Autism, if you are not scared, you should be.
When you came for my child, you forgot.
You came for me.
Autism, are you listening?
Unusual turn of events, both sides clash ideologically. The conflict played out publicly earlier today during the Portland Walk Now for Autism. Dozens of people showed up in the South Park block this morning for the fundraiser. The organization called Autism Speaks puts on the event in cities across the nation every year. However, another autism awareness group protested the walk, saying Autism Speaks has an unethical ad campaign. Portland's chapter of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network says Autism Speaks portrays people with the condition as a burden instead of promoting understanding and acceptance.
The I Am Autism video called us a burden on society, and that is very damaging for autistic people who are trying to be integrated into society, trying to find jobs, trying to form relationships. We don't want people to be scared of it.
One of Autism Speaks co-founders says ad campaigns have been enormously successful with a 25% increase in autism awareness among the general public.
Hey there, this is Eve Ryland with Wake, Bake, Caffeinate, and we're going to take a dive down into some autistic history here to May 17th, 2006. On this day, Autism Speaks published a press release titled Autism Speaks and Grasp to exchange articles of understanding. Now, this was a press release about the conflict they created with autistic people over their use of the word cure in regards to autism and their mission goal. So the controversy being specifically addressed in this statement was one that erupted between Autism Speaks and GRASP. And GRASP stands for Global Regional Asperger Syndrome Partnership. And this happened, of course, back in 2006. So Autism Speaks, of course, as we know, is a parent-led organization. And GRASP, and I didn't know this until finding this press release in the archives, was the largest organization with autistic adults. Again, back in 2006. Their status now I am not aware of. So they were going to post these articles of understanding these statements in an attempt to spark a substantive, Bill, substantive? Am I saying it right? Substantive? Okay, substantive. Okay. We're going to post these statements in an attempt to spark a substantive and mutually respectful dialogue about why they differ on using the word cure. So it would take Autism Speaks actually until 2016 to remove the word cure from their mission statement and marketing messages. But back in 2006, when these articles of understanding were actually published, and I have a comment on the Deconstruction of Autism Speaks series under the GRASP headline. Anyhow, I included in there both letters that were published after that press release, and one here that was written for Autism Speaks was written by Alison Singer. Now, Alison Singer is well known in the autistic community for some of the very awful statements of murder-suicide about their child back during this era for a documentary that she was helping to create for Autism Speaks. I believe it was... Anyhow, I'm going to read this in full for you. From the very headline where it starts, it only gets worse from there. So this is a trigger warning, a content notice, everything awful and stigmatizing and ableist and eugenics and definitely othering, condescending, and just ugh. It's awful. It's awful. It's awful. I've tried actually recording this a few times. This is going to be my last attempt because this is just awful. But, so just a warning, feel free to tap out now and take self-care and just avoid the whole hot mess here. Or at any point going forward, this is really, really awful. I can't tell you that enough. All right. And please, obviously, take time for self-care afterwards because I just know how much it triggers me. And oh boy. All right. So let's just move on to the letter. Hopefully I've done the warning justice. I'm not sure. So, Articles of Understanding. This one is by Alison Singer, who was Senior Vice President of Autism Speaks at the time of this writing in 2006. The headline here says, "Cure is not a 4-letter word." I'm just going to let you sit with that for a moment. Cure. Cure is not a 4-letter word, by Alison Singer, Senior Vice President of Autism Speaks. And this was published sometime in 2006. So, going forward, my daughter Lauren, a typically developing child, has a wonderful dynamic friend named Haley, who has been diagnosed with Asperger syndrome. while Haley is the best reader in the 2nd grade and can argue circles around the school principal. It is gut-wrenching to watch her struggle in school every day. She cannot keep friends and is often all alone on the playground during recess. She is prone to violent outbursts and is generally unable to function in her classroom without one-to-one support. Sometimes the kids, and quite honestly her teacher, seem afraid of her. Her mother suffers every day along with Haley as she wards off the pressure to administer medications that might calm the unruly disruptive behaviors but might also extinguish the brilliant light that has helped Haley excel academically. Haley has a personality and a mind all her own. If she were my daughter, I would be similarly loath to squash it. Haley needs a lot of support and understanding, but she doesn't need to be cured. Lauren's older sister, Jody, shares the same DSM-4 diagnosis as Haley, but Jody has classic autism, which falls on the other end of the autism spectrum from Asperger syndrome. Oh, myth. While I have often marveled at Haley's rhetorical skills and quick wit, Jody struggles to simply string 2 words together with any communicative intent. Many days it is hard to believe that the challenges Haley faces with regard to her Asperger syndrome and those Jody struggles with are related under the same DSM-4 diagnosis. At one end of the spectrum, we often find lower functioning persons, their words, of course, like my daughter, who cannot speak, have violent tantrums, and can be self-injurious. While at the other end, we have persons who struggle with very significant but very different, predominantly social issues. Too wide a spectrum. I am sure a lot of thought went into the decision to include Asperger syndrome as one of the autism spectrum disorders. On a scholarly level, I understand that Asperger syndrome is an expression of the extreme social deficits that characterize all those on the spectrum. Also, I am certainly glad that persons, my gosh, this person first language is atrocious to say out loud, with Asperger syndrome are becoming able to access support and services if they feel they need them. Oh, that's not condescending at all. But the differing abilities of persons with Asperger syndrome are nothing like my daughter's autism. And here we start the not like my child argument the autistic community is so familiar with all these years. So when we at Autism Speaks use the word cure, we are most often focused on people at the lower end of the spectrum. I have not met a person with Asperger syndrome who seemed anything like my daughter. None of these persons, however, has ever met my daughter because it is so hard to take her out of the house. It is hard to consider her differently abled because she is not abled. Oh, that one still just takes my breath away. I'm trying. It is hard to consider her differently abled, in quotes, because she is not, in quotes, abled. Okay. She is sweet and loving and works harder than anyone I know, but she does not have any areas of strengths that I fear squashing through medication, intervention, or cure. Oh, boy. Without her medication, she cries almost constantly during the day and can't sleep at night. She has frequent seizures. She cannot tell me when she is in pain or where it hurts. She puts everything in her mouth unless it is food. At age 9, her favorite game is still this little piggy. Thankfully, recently, she has learned to use words to name items she wants and needs, and this has dramatically reduced her violent tantrums. She has benefited greatly from behavioral therapy and from Risperidol and Depakote, but she has a long, long way to go. She has a neurological order that responds to antipsychotic medication. Her pain is heartbreaking, and I pray every day for a cure. That's right out of I Am Autism Speaks video, isn't it? And I pray every day for a cure. I do not use the word cure to insult other people on the spectrum. I use it because it accurately conveys my hope that one day her constant struggles will end and she will know a different, pain-free life. Use of the word cure holds particular meaning to parents whose children suffer regressive autism. These parents, I often feel, suffer the most as they had a glimpse of their children before autism. These parents seek a cure because they remember the child they had and want him back. Autism Speaks constituency tends to be dominated by parents of lower functioning children because many parents of children who are diagnosed as high functioning enough to be mainstream do not want to be associated with autism because of the stigma that is still attached to the disorder and for fear that their children will suffer from the label. Thus, our community does tend to be dominated by the faction of parents in search of a cure. For this reason, much of our community struggles with the portrayal of basketball star Jason McElwain as the poster child for autism. My daughter can't carry on an impromptu conversation with the press the way Jason did. She can't make a basket. She can't throw the ball. She couldn't sit still to watch the Teen Choice Awards, and I dare say she'll probably never receive one. Jason is a hero for all he has accomplished. But we knew there was a but coming in here, didn't we? The kids who struggle to learn to count, use a fork, and say I love you are equally heroic. That's quite the comparison. I'm gonna help you out a little bit here. You shouldn't feel too terrible about the Teen Choice Awards because almost every teenager alive since then and at that time and every time in between, almost every single teenager in the world is not going to receive a Teen Choice Award. So welcome to the club of none of us got one of those for our children, autistic and non-autistic. All right, so let's move forward before I completely lose my shit. Oh boy, I'm gonna pause and smoke. Hold on. All right, let's get going. Next section with the subhead is titled Asperger's Spectrum Disorder? ? A good deal of the furor over the word cure may be the result of confusing autism with autism spectrum disorder. Oh, we're going to get a lecture on autism from the lady who titled her paper, Hope or Cure is not a 4-letter word. Hello, you already failed Autism 101 before you even got to the first sentence of this essay, right? So let's go ahead and see what else is being said. There are 5 diseases that fall under the autism spectrum disorder umbrella, one of which is autism. One of the 5, Rett syndrome, has its own advocacy community. The gene that triggers Rett has been identified, and yet the Rett community does not protest when we say we do not yet know the genes that trigger autism because they are aware we are speaking of autism and not all of the autism spectrum disorders. Good grief. She's trying to speak like a lawyer? Did you see? Can you hear the ishing in this? This is just something else. All right. When Asperger syndrome groups use the term Asperger, it is clear that they are talking about. When Asperger syndrome groups use the term Asperger, it is clear what they are talking about. When autism organizations use the word autism, it is often unclear whether we are talking about autism or the entire spectrum, including Asperger syndrome. Most of the time, we are talking about autism. All right, if you can make heads or tails of that, that was a whole lot of talking without saying what you actually mean directly, a whole paragraph of it. If someone could tell me what that actually means in plain English, very direct speak, I'm sure it can be boiled down to a single sentence, right? So moving forward, but for whatever reason, all 5 disorders, whatever reason, all 5 disorders are placed together under one diagnosis because the similarities between them are greater than the differences. And again, that sentence is so speaking, But for whatever reason, I have no idea why, all 5 disorders are placed together under one diagnosis. And here's the reason. Because the similarities between them are greater than the differences. So how do you not know the reason and then know the reason in the same sentence? What? So perhaps we could take a lesson from the other disease advocacy organizations. Well, guess what? Autism is not a disease. There are many different diseases that fall under the umbrella cancer. Again, autism is not a disease. Autism is not at all like cancer. But no one argues that the intervention for leukemia should be the same as for brain cancer. Apples and oranges much. No one says that bone marrow research is insulting because it doesn't serve the needs of persons with brain tumors. Whoa, this is starting to sound like the conspiracy stuff. What? What? Okay, I have no idea what we're supposed to take away from that, but a bunch of gaslighting, and I still am not sure because they never directly made a point. All right, so here we go. The next headline, subhead, is hope is not a 4-letter word. I mean, really, just from the headline on, does not understand autistic people at all. Oh, at Autism Speaks, we are committed to bringing a voice to all who struggle with any type of autism spectrum disorder. So you're here to help all of us, but you're not. Okay, I'm confused, but I've been confused for a while. Our goal is to do this by funding science that will find new treatments and, yes, ultimately, we hope, a cure for autism. Not all autism, just autism, not your autism, a different kind of autism, but I can't quite define exactly where that autism lies, right? Yeah, so in fact, in our last round of grants, we funded several projects focused on Asperger syndrome and high-functioning autism. You want a brownie button for that? All right, we appreciate that persons with Asperger syndrome have different needs than persons with lower functioning autism, but we all need more options and new opportunities. Platitudes and a bunch of words that still don't really say much. Our hope is not to alienate, but to unite in order to bring greater awareness of autism spectrum disorders to the public at large, and thereby greatly increase public funding and private donations for treatment and research, increase access to services, and reduce the stigma that is still associated with autism spectrum disorders. By shining a strong spotlight on autism spectrum disorders, we can create a brighter future for all those who are affected. Absolutely some of the most circular speaking I have heard since, well, I don't know. That's saying a lot. This is 2021. We're kind of really have gone the way of the Tiger King documentary and circular speaking, but this still is like, wow, even in 2021. So, fuck, that's a 4-letter word. Just say what you fucking mean, right? Straight.
Joining us are Bob and Suzanne Wright of Autism Speaks. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to see you today.
Nice to be here.
When did you first become involved in autism awareness?
When my grandson Christian was diagnosed with autism, at the time Bob was running NBC, and I thought we were pretty informed people. We knew nothing about autism. It was 1 in 166, and here we knew nothing about it when he was diagnosed. So we decided to make it our mission to find out what was causing this epidemic.
When he was initially diagnosed, did you find that it was hard to find the resources that you and your family needed for your grandson?
Well, it was very difficult. It was so thin. I've often said it was like AIDS. When AIDS came along, nobody knew about it. They knew it was, oh my gosh, it's going to be a terrible thing, but no data. There was very, very little data on this. And therapy was, we were told even in Columbia, goodbye and good luck. There are a lot of therapists out there. We don't actually know them personally, but I'm sure you can find them. And that was it. That was the kind of the routine.
It was the most discriminated group of people I've ever come across.
And why do you think that is?
Well, because they had no power. They were so inundated with the autistic child. They had no insurance. Medical coverage wouldn't cover them. The schools gave them a hard time. It was absolutely amazing. They were busted. They were broke. They had no voice in this community. And now Autism Speaks has given them a very, very loud voice.
Well, next challenge that you all want to tackle for Autism Speaks?
Well, we have to get the Combating Autism Act, which was passed in 2006, reauthorized. That would normally not be an issue, but in Congress today, getting anything done with all the delays and everything, this is critical because this bill will expire in September, and it needs to be redone, and it needs to be a better bill. So this is a real challenge. This is a $1 billion bill over 5 years, so this has to get done. Secondly, we need translational medicines. You need to take the science and translate it into practical therapies or drugs that can be used, and this is a whole separate issue. The NIH gives you the basic science, but you have to get either drug companies or private groups to translate it, and that's a real issue. Even adults with autism, you don't die from autism, so you can have it your whole lifetime, but adults will benefit by services, they'll benefit by therapies. Speech is always an issue, behavioral issues, concentrations, sort of like ADH and things. All of this has to be dealt with, and we're hoping we can get therapies and drugs to do this.
And we also have to provide the insurance coverage in the next 25 states. Yesterday, the 25th state came in. Imagine insurance wouldn't cover them with their therapies. So that's a big challenge for us, and also the federal government.
We have New York State surrounded.
Yeah, we do.
Every state around New York State has wonderful autism insurance for their families. New York, the most liberal state, doesn't have it because they can never seem to get together, and we have worked so hard on this issue, and we got the bill passed, and it got vetoed by the governor at the very last days, and so we're going to start over again for about their 9th year.
We will not stop.
It's going to get done.
It's going to get done.
For those our viewers in the chat room who
knowing that 1 out of every 150 Americans are being diagnosed with autism, and make that more than every 94 boys. There's not a person in the room tonight that is not touched by autism in some manner. It affects our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, our friends, our colleagues, and our neighbors.
Going down the rabbit hole, going down the rabbit hole, going down the rabbit hole, down, 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 down.
Welcome to the bottom of the rabbit hole. This is Eve Ryland, and boy howdy, this is a doozy of a rabbit hole today. Today's topic is Autism Speaks and the cure. Alright, so before we get started, I want to alert you there's going to be an incredible amount of information included in this. A lot of names, a lot of organizations and places and things like that. It might be overloading, so go at your own pace, and I will also include the text version of this. I wrote this out the best I could and included links with the text to find the stories and things I'm referencing too. All right, before moving forward, I want to give a big trigger warning, content notice about this rabbit hole we're about to dig way deep down in history. It's going to include abuse, filicide, suicide, eugenics, action T4, murder, ableism, conversion therapy, or ABA, a whole lot of gaslighting, misinformation, and bullshit. So, in all seriousness, though, it is pretty heavy stuff. So please make sure to take care of yourself first and foremost. And going down the rabbit hole. Autism Speaks and The Cure. On March 31st of this year, Newsweek reported that Autism Speaks, partnering with Google on the Missing Project, sparked a backlash from the autistic community online. The article stated, a research project spearheaded by the controversial autism advocacy organization Autism Speaks and the tech behemoth Google has drawn the ire of some Twitter users who believe that it is designed to eradicate autism entirely. Missing, which was launched in 2014, involves the collection and sequencing of DNA from people with a personal or family history of autism. Missing is touted as groundbreaking collaboration between Autism Speaks, Google, and the research community to create the world's largest genomic database on autism. Their goal is to provide the best resources to enable the identification of many subtypes of autism, which may lead to better diagnostics as well as personalized and a more accurate treatments. Missing is touted as groundbreaking collaboration between Autism Speaks, Google, and the research community to create the world's largest genomic database on autism. Their goal is to provide the best resources to enable the identification of many subtypes of autism, which may lead to better diagnostics as well as personalized and more accurate treatments. Now, this isn't the first time autistics have protested this partnership and project. Autism Speaks announced their partnership with Google Cloud in December 2014. Missing was promoted as a significant milestone in advancing autism research. The goal was to sequence the complete genomes of 10,000 autistics and their families by early 2016. The hope was the project could lead to a breakthrough in identifying the causes and subtypes of autism. Autism Speaks released a statement on September 1st, 2015, that boasted the Missing portal also included collaboration. Center for Applied Genomics at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, and Google to analyze and store Missing's data. At the time of the launch, they had more than 60 researchers at 26 institutions on 4 continents approved to access the data. The development, open sharing, and collaborative exploration of massive databases of genomic information, like those already available through Missing, will shape the future of autism research more than any other specific area of scientific investment, said Dr. Robert Ring, Chief Science Officer at Autism Speaks. Autism Speaks published a press release on December 9th, 2014 about the partnership. Millions of people living with autism today need answers. The MSSNG project, pronounced Missing, is the search for those answers, and we're going to find them, said Liz Feld, president of Autism Speaks. The press release also prompted their autism community to participate in a Twitter campaign with instructions to remove the vowels from their screen names. This was to be symbolic. The vowels were omitted to represent the missing pieces of the autism puzzle that researchers hoped to find. It was also meant to be symbolic of the missing information or questions they had about autism and the causes of autism. The campaign used the hashtag MSSNG. In response, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, ASAN, put out a call to autistics to protest the Autism Speaks Twitter campaign with "We are hashtag not missing NOTMSSNG." One of the example tweets stated, "How about research into supports and services instead of elimination and cure? Hashtag not missing, hashtag missing." This protest was an attempt to be heard by Google and have autistic lives respected and valued by the company. Google ignored autistics. Once again, the autism community roared over the voices of the autistic community. The missing project was originally known as the 10,000 Genomes Project, or AUT10K, spelled AUT10K. As stated in an Autism Speaks press release, June 10, 2014, Autism Speaks, the world's leading autism science and advocacy organization, today announced a collaboration with Google to develop the world's largest database of genomic sequence information on individuals with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and their family members. The collaboration represents a significant milestone in advancing genomic research of the disorder and could lead to breakthroughs in the causes, subtypes, and better diagnosis and treatment for ASD. The Autism Speaks 10,000 Genomes Project, AUT10K, is valued at $50 million. The name AUT10K shocked and angered many autistics. Either Autism Speaks made a giant blunder due to their lack of connection to the autistic community, or they knew exactly what they were doing when they named their genetics project so similarly to Action T4, a euthanasia program authorized by Hitler to exterminate disabled children and people. At least 300,000 disabled children were murdered between 1939 and 1945. Nazis held the belief that those who could not work were useless eaters. They were life unworthy of life and a burden on their communities. This burden of people would make Germany weak because of the expense to care for them. Parents were instructed to send their disabled child to an institution. Later, they had received notice that their child died from natural causes. These were not natural deaths. These children died by gassing, injection, or starvation, and their death was considered a mercy killing. Essentially, the children were considered better off dead than disabled. Hans Asperger, a pioneer of autism research, was the first person to use the word autistic in relation to 4 children in his practice back in 1944. While his research with autism is now known, what we also know now is that Asperger also referred children to the Spiegelgrund, knowing the children would be killed. Before death, some of these children would be used cruelly as experiments. At least 789 children died at this Vienna Children's Clinic. The mass extermination of disabled children and people was the predecessor of the Nazis' final solution. The final solution was the Nazi policy of exterminating European Jews and resulted in the Holocaust with 6 million being murdered. Autistic concerns about the program and name were minimized, brushed off, or ignored. However, by December of 2014, Autism Speaks no longer referred to the project as Aut10K. Now, it's well known in the autistic community that the cure for autism is the same cure society has for Down syndrome. This cure is the prevention of birth based on autism risk during pregnancy. The other cure or recovery Autism Speaks refers to is applied behavioral analysis, ABA, also known as autistic conversion therapy. And yes, this is the same gay conversion therapy that is being banned in many states in the United States. ABA is incredibly abusive, and recovery is a very profitable myth that autistics are currently fighting worldwide. Suzanne Wright, one of the founders of Autism Speaks, had spoke about autism as a burden the world just couldn't afford in the media and at speeches many times. She spoke about an autism epidemic and generations of children being left behind. No country can afford 2% of its boys. That's not going to make it. We have to do something about it. Suzanne Wright's goal was to cure autism within a generation. John Shestak, a founder of Cure Autism Now, said this of the Wrights on the first anniversary of Autism Speaks. They've raised an unheard amount of money, and I believe they will provide leadership for years that will make autism a household word, and then ultimately make autism a word we only see in history books. The autism cure was a goal that has been stated by the founders of Autism Speaks and the founders of the organizations like CAN they merged with for decades. So recently, when Tom Frazier, Chief Science Officer of Autism Speaks, told Newsweek that autistics aren't understanding the missing project correctly, he was boldly disingenuous. Frazier completely skipped over the cure history, minimized autistics' concerns, ignored questions, bypassed transparency, and stuck to the Autism Speaks talking points. This is typical of Autism Speaks board members and representatives. Frazier also dismissed autistics' concerns about gene editing with CRISPR. There's this sort of misconception that somehow the missing project is about finding an autism gene and then doing gene therapy to get rid of autism. That is a very, very bad misconception, I would say, of the project. The project really is about trying to understand the biology of people with autism so that we can identify the kinds of interventions and supports they might need, he said. That Frazier refers to autistics as having a bad misconception of the project and dismisses the backlash is outright ludicrous. Even in 2021, Autism Speaks still doesn't understand that autistics, not our non-autistic parents, are the majority stakeholders here. Our questions matter. This quote, like many others from Autism Speaks professionals, feels very dismissive and dishonest in its portrayal of autistics. The Newsweek article also states the first phase of missing is to complete and make data available from the whole genome sequencing of blood DNA of 10,000 individuals from families from the Autism Genetic Research Exchange, AGRE, repository. or from other well-phenotyped cohorts entering into this study. So, all right, let's take a dive into autistic history here. And let's take a much closer look at this DNA repository mentioned by Fraser, okay? But first, I need to take some medicine. Smoke it from Cleo today. She is my very magical looking glass bone that's very purple, green, and blue. And has a metallic sheen. It's kind of a trip, actually. But I named her Cleo after, like, you know, I don't know. It's just a neat name. Seemed to fit. All right, so
roll me up and smoke me when I die. And if anyone don't like it, just look 'em in the eye. I didn't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. No, you won't see no sad and teary eyes. When I get my wings, it's time to fly. Just call my friends and tell them that there's a party, come on by. And just roll me up and smoke me when I die. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. And if anyone don't like it, just look 'em in the eye. I didn't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. When I go out, I've been here long enough. So sing and tell more jokes and dance and stuff. And just keep the music playing, that'll be a good goodbye. And roll me up and smoke me when I die. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. And if anyone don't like it, just look 'em in the eye. I didn't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. Just take me out and build a roaring fire. And just roll me in the flames for about an hour. And then pull me out and twist me up and point me towards the sky. And roll me up and smoke me when I die. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. And if anyone don't like it, just look 'em in the eye. I didn't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. Just roll me up and smoke me when I die. I didn't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. Going down the rabbit hole, going down the rabbit hole, going down the rabbit hole, down, 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 down.
let's take a dive into autistic history here and get a much closer look at this DNA repository mentioned by Fraser. The Autism Genetic Research Exchange, AGRE, was a project of the organization Cure Autism Now, CAN, that launched in 1997. founders John Shostak, a film producer, and his wife, Portia Iverson, founded CAN in 1995. They are parents of an autistic and authors of the book Strange Son. Cure Autism Now was comprised of parents, doctors, and scientists focused on research to prevent, treat, and cure autism. At one point, the National Alliance for Autism Research, NAAR, invited Shostak and Iverson to join their board. The offer was declined, however. The couple wasn't patient with staying with the scientific establishment. The National Alliance for Autism Research, NAAR, was founded in 1994 by a small group of parents, which included 2 psychiatrists, a lawyer, a CPA, and a chemistry professor. NAAR committed over $20 million to autism research projects, fellowships, and collaborative programs. Also established and funded the Autism Tissue Program, a post-mortem brain tissue donation program. NAAR also established the High-Risk Baby Sibling Autism Research Project, the NAAR Genome Project, and published a newsletter named Narrative. In 2006, NAAR merged with Autism Speaks. In 1997, Shostak and Iverson established the Autism Genetic Resource Exchange, AGRE. Surprisingly, their launch really was a success, even with the pushback from scientists who question Cure Autism Now's methods and ability to complete the project with merit. Cure Autism Now ultimately contributed over $39 million for research grants and programs. Those included the AGRE, Autism Treatment Network, ATN, Clinical Trials Network, CTN, and Innovative Technology for Autism. Autism Speaks and CAN completed their merger in 2007. The statement given by Autism Speaks' Tom Fraser in the 2021 Newsweek article glosses right over the long history Autism Speaks has with autistics protesting their mission to cure autism. The doublespeak on the cure started decades ago between non-autistic parents and autistics. On May 17, 2006, the conflict erupted to such a degree that Autism Speaks published a press release titled Autism Speaks and GRASP to exchange articles of understanding. Alison Singer, Senior Vice President of Autism Speaks, and Michael John Carley, Executive Director of GRASP, will each write an article and publish it sometime that spring, the press release stated. And to note, GRASP, G-R-A-S-P, is short for Global and Regional Asperger Syndrome Partnership. The article that Singer published was titled, Cure is Not a Four-Letter Word. Yep. From the title of the essay to the end, Singer's writing is ableist, dehumanizing, minimizing, and just outright horrific double speak and gaslight, just a big mess of it. So parts of it felt downright condescending, and I don't understand a lot of it. It included some really lengthy, gnarled logic and some definition that Singer has for the word cure, and how that somehow doesn't include autistics, just the ones like her daughter. And here's a quote from that. Use of the word cure holds particular meaning to parents whose children suffer regressive autism. These parents, I often feel, suffer the most as they had a glimpse of their children before autism. These parents seek a cure because they remember the child they had and want him back. but the differing abilities of persons with Asperger's syndrome are nothing like my daughter's autism. When we at Autism Speaks use the word cure, we are most often focused on the people at the lower end of the spectrum. I have not met a person with Asperger's syndrome who seemed anything like my daughter. None of these persons, however, has ever met my daughter because it is so hard to take her out of the house. It's hard to consider her differently abled because she is not abled. And yes, this is Alison Singer, Senior Vice President of Autism Speaks in 2006. Oh, goodness. Alison Singer is well known in the autistic community already as one of the Autism Speaks affiliated parents that spoke of Filicide, of her autistic child in a documentary. She described a murder-suicide scenario that she almost completed, but didn't because she had a typical daughter at home to raise still. Her autistic and disabled daughter was in the room listening when this honest confession was shared. Singer continued the description of her autistic daughter. She is sweet and loving and works harder than anyone I know, but she does not have any areas of strength that I fear squashing through medication, intervention, or cure. A good deal of the furor over the word cure may be the result of confusing autism with autism spectrum disorder. When autism organizations use the word autism, it is often unclear whether we are talking about autism or the entire spectrum, including Asperger's syndrome. Most of the time we are talking about autism. Autism Speaks constituency tends to be dominated by parents of lower functioning, their words, children, because many parents of children who are diagnosed as high functioning enough to be mainstream do not want. They do not want to be associated with autism because of the stigma that is still attached to the disorder and for fear that their children will suffer from the label. Gaslighting us much? What? All right. Whoa. Hold on. That's driving me to smoke. Oh, yeah. Smoke him if you got him. If not, I'll do one for you. Whoa. Just whoa. I gotta pause here for a minute. All right. I'm back from taking a personal care break. Yep. All right. So going back to the article here, I'm going to start with, all right, a good deal of the furor over the word cure may be the result of confusing autism with autism spectrum disorder. Oh, that's not condescending at all. So when autism organizations use the word autism, it is often unclear whether we are talking about autism or the entire spectrum, including Asperger's syndrome. Most of the time, we are talking about autism. Autism Speaks constituency tends to be dominated by parents of, her words, lower functioning children, because many parents of children who are diagnosed as high functioning enough to be mainstream do not want to be associated with autism because of the stigma that is still attached to the disorder, and for fear that their children will suffer from the label. Thus, our community does tend to be dominated by the faction of parents in search of a cure. Well, isn't that an interesting mishmash of what cure means to Alison Singer? I guess Singer and the others at Autism Speaks didn't compare notes, though, before she published her statement. The bio included On the press release for Articles of Understanding, and yes, the press release put out by Autism Speaks, states right there, Autism Speaks and the National Alliance for Autism Research, NAAR, recently combined operations, bringing together two of the leading organizations dedicated to accelerating and funding biomedical research into the causes, prevention, treatments, and cure for autism spectrum disorders. That clearly states cure autism spectrum disorders. Okay, so Singer ends her essay with a segment titled, Hope is Not a 4-Letter Word. Yeah. All right, so Autism Speaks announced an $8.4 million grant from the National Institutes of Health on October 3rd, 2007. This grant would create a new center for genomic and phenomic studies in autism at USC and include scientists from some very prestigious locations, including the UC Mind Institute. The protest to Autism Speaks' mission to cure autism by autistics waged on until 2016, when Autism Speaks finally removed the word cure from their mission statement. Although nothing other than the marketing language changed. In 2017, investigative reporter Lilia Luciano of ABC 10 in Sacramento, California, reported on the autistic civil rights movement and Autism Speaks. In that interview, she spoke to people at the UC Mind Institute and at Spark for Autism, as well as with autistic adults from here in Fresno, California, where I live, and actually at my house. So, in the interview, she spoke with Ann Christensen, an autistic advocate, and they said, "We are worried that there's a test, a genetic marking test that you can take while you are still pregnant to find out what exactly your kid will have, and if they find autism, they will ask you, are you sure you still wish to proceed with this? And this is absolutely selfish." Lilia Luciano took the concern about the autism cure to UC Mind Institute and asked some questions. The Mind Institute is taking part in Spark, the largest, most ambitious study ever done on autism. The goal is to enroll 50,000 families who have a son or daughter in the spectrum within 3 years in order to better understand the genetics of the disorder. And I'm going to apologize in advance of the last name. I have no idea how to pronounce it, so I'm going to do my best. Okay, so I asked Dr. It's spelled Abbeduto, Abedo. Oh, I don't even know. I'm sorry. So Dr. A, okay? About the concern that genetic testing could open the door for parents to terminate a pregnancy. Dr. A, the director of the UC Davis Mind Institute, stated, "Well, I think it shows that in science is not a value neutral, right?" he said. "Everything we discover has the potential to change how people behave. I think a lot of what we can do is give people choices about how they live their lives and ultimately their choice for how they raise their children," he added. "I don't think there's a path we shouldn't go down because it might create controversy." The UC Mind Institute was created by parents demanding that scientists look at other causes of autism. The Institute's largest contribution has come from the California State Legislature, which provided $34 million. The UC Mind Institute published a press release in January of 2021 about researchers having identified several partners of maternal autoantibodies highly associated with the diagnosis and severity of autism. ScienceAlert.com published the news under the headline, "Researchers claim 100% accuracy predicting autism risk factors in mom's blood." And this is a quote, "We can envision that a woman could have a blood test for these antibodies prior to getting pregnant. If she had them, she'd know she would be at a very high risk of having a child with autism. If not, she has a 43% lower chance of having a child with autism as MAR autism is ruled out," Van der Water said. This study is a big deal in terms of early risk assessment for autism, and we're hoping that this technology will become something that will be clinically useful in the future. And the article goes on to state, combined with other recent studies providing solid foundations for highly accurate ASD diagnostic tools, we might expect a future where parents can be well prepared for possibility of raising an infant with autism. Of course, the decision on whether to proceed with trying for a child would then be up to the family involved.
In this morning's Health Watch, alarming news about autism. A new study from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says 1 in 88 children has at least some symptoms of the disorder. Of those, 1 in 54 will be boys. That's an increase of over 78% since 2002. The cost associated with autism will reach nearly $137 billion a year in the U.S.
And while the search for answers continues, millions of families struggle with the emotional and financial burden of caring for someone with autism. Joining us now are Bob and Suzanne Wright. They founded Autism Speaks in 2005 after their grandson was diagnosed with the disorder. Bob Wright is also the former chairman of NBC Universal. And good morning to both of you. And Bob, I think full disclosure here, you're also our former boss. Both of our former bosses at one time.
Bosses.
Back in the day,
Yes.
back in the day. But these statistics, they were startling to me. 1 in 88 children, $137 billion. Were they startling to you?
I just want to say one thing that people may not understand, because that number 137 just came out. Most of that $137 billion is borne by parents, not the state or the government. It's borne by parents. It's $60,000 a person. That's how that number comes out. And between loss of income and actually out-of-pocket expenses, you live in an urban area, it's very easy to be more than $60,000. So that number is not a gift.
Right.
That's on them.
It's an important distinction in this whole debate about who's taking care of whom and
mostly on them.
Suzanne, can I ask you?
Sure.
For a parent out there who suspects there might be something wrong, there may be an autism issue here, but they just don't know what to do, what should they do?
They should go to autismspeaks.org, go to our website. We have developmental stages from 6, 12 months, 18 months. I suspected something, and I tell you, that was only 8 years ago. And when I went to the doctors, they said, don't worry about it, boys regress, because Katie had another child. In the day of the autism epidemic, you have to be safe, not sorry.
You have to press your pediatrician to make sure. Pediatricians have a guideline to have 2 examinations between 18 and 24 months. There's no question today that you can get a full diagnosis of autism by a year, but at least 18 months. And even though we can't prevent it, and there's nothing we can tell parents to do to avoid it, and there's nothing we can tell parents that they have done that was negative. So be prepared, and the issue is to get an early diagnosis and then immediately get into occupational, behavioral, and speech therapies.
Right.
And that's the guiding light to get to kindergarten and get into a public school. And almost 50% of children that are diagnosed with autism, if they do what I just described, they're going to have a pretty good chance to get through a public school system at or near age level with a lot of help. Otherwise, it's really a dark tale.
What do we think is driving such a significant increase?
I think Dr. Bierman from Columbia did a study sponsored by the NIH, which he said is better diagnosis, broader diagnosis, and more awareness. That was 50%. 50% is we don't know.
50%. So half of the cases, we don't know why they're happening. The other half, we just happen to be able to see it, to know.
I think we think that there's a lot of that half is genetic, but it's genetic susceptibility as opposed to identifiable genes. In other words, there's some exposure that has undergone that has taken that susceptibility into autism. Now, you see this with cancers, you see this with other conditions. It's not unusual. Cancer has a very large unknown factor. And so it's not like we're introducing an element here that isn't in other diseases and conditions.
Right.
But we don't know what caused it. We don't know how to cure it. Again, same difference from cancer. So the issue is you're treating it. We put all of our research money out there, but it needs so much more. We're starting from scratch here.
Quickly, Suzanne, tell me about the Light It Up Blue campaign.
Oh, thank you for asking. 2 years ago, I started with the Empire State Building, and that was about 200 buildings. And then last year, we were 2,000. This year, we're over 2,000. It is around the world. We're going to the Intrepid after this, where we're having Light It Up the Intrepid, and we're having Autism Speaks to the military families and salutes them. Because the military families who have autism have a very difficult time because they're deployed in different bases around the country, and many of those bases only have one therapist. So we want to light the world up blue, and we'll start with the Stock Exchange on the World Day. Duncan Niederhauer is a great friend of ours. Go to Stock Exchange around the world. And Tommy Hilfiger lighted up the Empire State Building, Niagara Falls, Kingdom Tower in Saudi Arabia. It's just extraordinary.
We will look out for it. Thank you so much for being with us. Bob and Suzanne Wright,
nice to be here.
Autism Speaks.
Good to see you both.
Very much.
Well, there were people out protesting the event and the organization Autism Speaks. Protesters lined the streets with signs. They say they protested the group because they don't agree on employee pay and where all the money goes. They also claim Autism Speaks doesn't have anyone with autism directly involved with leadership.
One of the ways that we like to look at it, I mean, autism is definitely a disability, but a lot of the problems with disability doesn't necessarily deal with the person themselves, but more or less how society is constructed, right? So, you know, things that we're in support of are things like supports, services, therapies, education, etc.
Well, we just talked with the Autism Speaks organization, and they tell us when it comes to where the money goes, their main focus is research. And they say when it comes to employee pay, they are competitive with other nonprofit organizations.
April is Autism Awareness Month. Buildings light up in blue, puzzle pieces pop up all over the place, and even Sesame Street welcomed a new character with autism spectrum disorder. But our awareness dwarfs in the face of so much that's still unknown.
Autism is not a single thing. We know that there are lots of different manifestations or subtypes of autism, and autism probably has a lot of different causes and contributing factors.
We're the UC Davis Mind Institute. It's one of the leading institutions studying autism in the country. They look at everything from what happens to the cells of individuals with autism all the way to how to integrate people with autism into society. We're here to meet one of the founders, Dr. Luvis Mara, who has a son who's autistic and actually works here as well.
We have 4 kids. Mark is our youngest, and he was born in 1993. And for the first year of life, he was just meeting all of his milestones. During his second year of life, however, his speech did not come in, and he lost some language. Hey, how you doing? Good. Good. Here, let's take this. Let's take this off. Say goodbye. I'm gonna go say goodbye. This is Lillian.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Very good to meet you, Mark. Mark was diagnosed with autism at 18 months. Back then, the number of cases was picking up, but it was still only 1 in 500 children that were identified as having autism spectrum disorder. Today, it's 1 in 68.
For the first couple of years after his diagnosis, my wife and I and our family, we kind of lived in a bunker. We didn't share his diagnosis. And we still had the vision that Mark possibly could be cured that there could be a cure for his condition. We didn't want to stigmatize him. And we really, and like so many other families, went through all of the stages of grief. Initially denial and anger and worrisome, etc.
But all those early emotions turned into action, and he, along with a few other families of autistic children, founded the Mind Institute, which today gets about $25 million a year in research grants and contracts. Without one particular cause pinned down, I started asking about a cure, and that's when my journey into the world of the spectrum really started. I met Eve and her fiancé in San Francisco. She has 3 children, 2 of them on the spectrum. Eve had mailed me to discuss some common misconceptions about autism. She reminded me that autism is not a disease. She says it's just how her brain interacts with the world around, and that being on the spectrum just makes her neurodiverse. The rest of us are neurotypical.
We're born with different brains. All of us have different brain types or different neurotypes, and that's autism. We're a different neurotype. We're born this way, and we're going to die this way. Okay? There's no cure for it.
So does it remind you of like how, you know, there's gay conversion therapy and now society's saying, wait, that's wrong.
Right.
Change gay people.
Right. There's so many of us because in speaking with anybody who wants to speak out, so many of us are in the closet and can't come out.
I met with a group of Eve's friends at her home in Fresno.
It's not what I have, it's my identity. It is a part of me. It is my adjective describing how my mind works, how I am programmed. It is not a flaw.
Last year, the largest advocacy group for autism, Autism Speaks, changed its mission, removing any mention of the word cure. But that's not enough. They say they're tired of campaigns that use negative labels, sick of hearing scientists speak for them, and family members getting all the empathy and attention. Many adults in the spectrum are reclaiming their voice in a conversation they say was taken away from them because they're too verbal to speak for all autistics.
What I have seen is outside us, that being a division, being told, well, you're too high functioning to have a voice, and you're too low functioning to have a voice. You shouldn't tell us that you don't want a cure because you're not thinking about these over here, and they can't even talk. Well, we have nonverbal autistics who can communicate, saying, you know, just because we're not like you doesn't mean we're better dead than disabled.
They say their talents and interests aren't really welcome or understood in a neurotypical world.
Well, what we need to do is talk to the autistics and find out what we need. This is about civil rights. This is about equality. This is about having access to support and services, access to transitional age, and job accommodations.
Do you know what the
Jennifer Davis, who like Eve is a neurodiverse mom raising a neurodiverse child, says she chose to raise her son to embrace his differences and hopes the neurotypical world will catch on.
And he doesn't care. It makes me smarter, and it makes me special, and it makes me different, and he just loves the fact that he's autistic. And it's made me realize how difficult I've made my life trying to cover up the fact that I was not like everybody else. It was this constant struggle to figure out, like, do I want to embrace being different, or do I want to keep trying to fit in? And then my son came up with the phrase, why fit in when you can stand out?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here, and I want to thank the Pontifical Council so very much for the Catholic faith leading the way to all faiths to face the global public health crisis of autism. I echo Bob's words. It is truly an honor of my lifetime to be here at the Vatican and to have the struggles of our grandson, Christian, and the 70 million children like him recognized by the Holy Father. Let us all be honest. Autism is like nothing we have ever experienced before, and there are a tremendous amount of suffering in our autism families. It reminds me of the words of His Holiness in his writing last year, The Joy of the Gospel. There are Christians whose lives seem like Lent without Easter. Many parents and caregivers are tired, they're confused and angry.
We've been there. Their joy can be overshadowed by long days with children in need of constant care. They may not know what to do to help. They may not know the word autism at all. And if, like my grandson Christian, their loved one has little language to help communicate, they may be a bit lost. Autism is making us look at our whole world in a very different way. Autism is a world where spoken language is not the king, where physical expressions of love, like a hug, can be so difficult, where social interaction may even be more problematic. Autism is forcing parents and caregivers to slow down the frenetic pace of our modern world and look into the eyes of our loved ones, as St. Francis did with the leper. It is opening their hearts and their minds. And when that happens, small miracles of autism take place. The miracle of understanding what's really important in our world. The miracle of living in the moment. The miracle of truly rejoicing in our small moments. The new word uttered. The small task completed. The miracle of genuinely appreciating the beauty of our world. In many ways, our children with autism are just like St. Francis. They may seem trapped in their bodies, and yes, they can have physical pain, but yet they are free. Free from the constraints of time, free from the burdens of money, free from the experience and explore nature in all its glory, free from cynicism. They are full of wonder. And in a very complex society, they have simple needs and simple desires. As Bob explained, we began our journey at Autism Speaks by creating walks to get families involved and to raise awareness. We now have concerts and sporting events. We sponsor all kinds of activities like swimming lessons and theater performances. We invest in science and job training. But in our travels and at our annual conference with the First Ladies and dignitaries in New York upon the opening of the UN General Assembly, for the last 7 years, it became very apparent to us that there is a great disparity in the levels of awareness around the globe. And without awareness, there can be no education and understanding and compassion, and then no truly unified community. In some places, the word autism is not even spoken. It goes hand in hand with shame, disgrace, harassment, and isolation. We are reminded of what the Apostle Matthew writes in the New Testament, 25:40. And to the King will answer, in truth I tell you, insofar as you did this to one of the least of my brothers of mine, you did it to me. And so we decided to lift up those places, and indeed the world, with the universal symbol of hope, joy, love, and salvation. And that is light. And what travels faster than light? Love. For the last 5 years, we have spent every day asking anyone who would listen to volunteer to light up their monuments, their businesses, their palaces, places of worship and homes blue on our UN World Sanction Awareness Day, April 2nd. This year, all 7 continents were glowing a beautiful blue, as you said. To change our world, we must be good to those who cannot repay us. Our loved ones with autism won't be able to repay us in the way we are accustomed, yet their smiles and their laughs have a way of being infectious in ways even more important. They open countless hearts and minds and in turn draw even more volunteers. And that's what we need, because autism really does require the work of a village. Vice President Andy Shih has a team working with the WHO on the curriculum that Bob mentioned. They are also working in 60 countries as part of our global public health initiative. They are using the body of knowledge we have amassed at Autism Speaks in almost a decade of constant work and tailoring the needs to each country. We call them our autism researchers without borders. They are eliminating the geographic boundaries while still respecting our cultural differences. And what is most critical about this work is that it's also intended to get down to the level of the family and the volunteer. It is critical to use every tool possible to build that foundation of selfless love, because most of our daily work has to be done at the foundational level, within the family and the small village of people that we are taking care of our children with autism. There is no time to waste. The rates of autism are rising rapidly. So let us all walk next to the 70 million children and teens and adults with autism around the world every day. Let us be a welcoming example for all our faiths. Let us see that pure vision of those with autism and past everything that divides us. Let the most pressing childhood developmental disorder of this century be what finally brings all of us and all of our faiths together. And let us not forget that mere words will not help those families. Volunteerism begins and ends with our hearts. So please go home and carry that candle and light up your countries. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
It's terrible.
Hi. I got a surprise. Besides a voice, these men and women say they're actually fighting for the survival of neurodiverse people.
That's what we are worried about. Like that first and foremost. First of all, there's a test, genetic marking or whatever, that you can take when you are still pregnant to find out what exactly your kid will have. And if they find the autism trait on there, they say, "Are you sure you still wish to proceed with this?" That is absolutely selfish.
So this is what you receive, and it comes with instructions.
The Mind Institute is taking part in SPARK, the largest, most ambitious study ever done on autism. The goal is to enroll 50,000 families who have a son or a daughter in the spectrum within 3 years in order to better understand the genetics of the disorder. I asked Dr. Abadudo about the concern that genetic testing could open the door for parents to terminate a pregnancy.
There's people who say that identifying, especially the genetic part of understanding autism, is something that looks to perhaps eradicate autism. And individuals in the future who are born with autism, like it happens with Down syndrome. How do you respond to that from a scientific standpoint?
Well, I mean, I think it shows that science is not value neutral, right? I mean, everything we discover has the potential to change how people behave. And so I think a lot of what we can do is to give people choices about how they live their lives, and ultimately their choice for how they raise their children and things like that. So I mean, I really see it as kind of informed. I don't think there's a path we shouldn't go down because it might create controversy. I think it really is how we as a human society value and interpret those findings.
Wherever the science leads, what nobody denies is that these men and women deserve a productive place in society. They say their talents and interests aren't really welcome or understood in a neurotypical world.
All right, well, that wraps it up for Wake, Bake, Caffeinate podcast episode 3. We're going to go ahead and wind it up here again with another song from Bill Ryland. And this one is called, or his version of Still Haven't Found what the fuck is the name of this song?
Which one?
Still haven't found.
I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
What I'm looking for. Still, I can't read it. All right, well, that is wrapping it up for Wake, Bake, Caffeinate podcast episode 3. We're going to go ahead and wind it up with another song from Bill Ryland, his version of Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. So enjoy, and see you in the next episode of Wake, Bake, Caffeinate.
I have run, I have crawled, I have scaled these city walls, only to be with you. But I still haven't found what I'm looking for. No, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I have kissed honey lips, felt the healing in her fingertips. It burned like the fire, this burning desire. I have spoke with the tongues of angels. I have held the hand of the devil. It was warm in the night, I was cold as a stone, yeah. But I still haven't found what I'm looking for. No, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I believe in the kingdom come, and all the colors, they will bleed into one, they will bleed into one. And yes, I'm still running. You broke the bonds, you loosed the chains, you carried the cross of my shame, of my shame. You know I believe it, but I still haven't found what I'm looking for. No, I still haven't found what I'm looking for.